Hey, good morning everybody, and welcome to this edition of Avoiding Broke outside in the sun, just on a nature walk. So guys, this morning I want to just share with you some very simple tactics that we within Avoiding Broke are going to be employing during this whole cost of living crisis to really improve our net financial position. So look, it's worth saying that during COVID, we really went deep in the tank to look at the smart ways that we could try to improve our situation and overall increase our net worth. Now, we did it successfully, and the four tactics that I'm going to outline to you right now are really central to the whole strategy that we followed for a couple of years in a disciplined, focused, committed way. Strategy number one. We looked at all of our expenses, absolutely everything, and made sure that we reduced our expenses on all day-to-day items. Now look, this is really important. When you have a look at typical budgets, especially typical budgets from those who are not doing financial planning, what you normally see is a tendency towards about 40% of income being spent on day-to-day non-essential some essential items. Now, when you think 40% of what you bring in can easily be going out, and that can be on a mixture of things like shopping, entertainment, random upkeep of things like vehicles, all that kind of thing, there is a huge amount of room to really just reduce where the outflow is, to massively bring down your discretionary spend, bring down that day-to-day expense, and in turn give yourself a pot of money that you can then redeploy into other more valuable ventures. So we cut everything. We cut day-to-day shopping, we reduced expenses on things like cars, we reduced subscriptions, so we cut entertainment. It sounds really simple, but the key thing is you've got to start becoming, or we found that we had to start becoming more discerning, a little bit more critical about how we were spending that money. Because like we always say, the lesson that we took was that it's going to be a lot easier to keep money in than it would be to earn new money. It sounds really simple, but that reality for us was key. Managing to stem the tide of the outflows was going to be far easier, far more accessible than figuring out new ways to make money. So day-to-day expenses got cut. That's tactic number one. Tactic number two is we then started to find ways to reduce our non-day-to-day expenses. Now, some of these might be considered quite essential, but again, the chance to reduce how you spend, the chance to reduce the outflow, it does still exist. So look, a few examples might be, some people are going to now be receiving cost of living payments to help themselves. Those payments are going to be giving you the chance to reduce your essential non-day-to-day expenses. Equally, you're going to get supplementary payments from fuel companies. Some people in the States got things like your government money, your stimulus checks. That's the one I'm looking for. So the opportunities are always going to be there to take and have a look at your non-day-to-day, potentially deemed essential expenses, and find sensible ways to reduce them. If, for example, you're a renter, this is the kind of time where you may call your landlord up and just say, look, I know my contract is due for renewal. I know typically we've been renewing on a 1-year basis, so a 12-month contract. How would you feel if we were to renew on a 2 or 3 year contract, but you agreed to hold the rent, you lock the rate in? Many landlords are going to be thinking to themselves, this is a pretty great opportunity, because they're going to have a guaranteed commitment for maybe say 2 years rather than 1, and you get the benefit of having your rent locked in, which at a time of high inflation and massive demand in the rental property market, the reality is rents are going up like we've never seen. So these are just that's a really simple way about trying to lock in those non-day-to-day, potentially essential expenses. The third thing that we realised that we had to do with an Avoiding Broke was we had to keep busy. Absolutely essential, because it's like they say, the devil makes work for idle hands. We quickly realised that the biggest factors that were really making us spend more money on non-essential commitments was truly where we were having too much free time. because it was in that free time that we were looking, saying, oh, should we go out? You know, should we order in? Should we increase the amount of entertainment that we were consuming? And with that consumption was coming more cost. So as simple as it sounds, that very basic reduction in the way we were occupying our hands and the way we were really conditioning our minds, it shifted. So we looked and just acknowledged our own potential weaknesses for overconsumption when we may have been bored or may not have had too much focus. We occupied ourselves with really wholesome activities that help ourselves but also that contribute to society. And we use that focus to then remove some of the idle nature. And in removing it, we then removed a lot of the temptation to spend money randomly, to waste it on Amazon, to waste it on ordering in. We just started to really trim that back. And it was something that just happened more and more over time. So it's almost like you've got to acknowledge we found, and our reflection was, we had to acknowledge the weaknesses that we had in those times of idleness, replace those idle moments with productive moments, and then kind of time and nature did its thing. The fourth tactic, the last one that I'm going to leave you with, is that we recognized that whatever situation we were in was probably going to be medium to long term. And that mindset shift then propelled us to be more disciplined over a longer period of time. And that's pretty important. If you think that crisis or this cost of living crisis or COVID is only going to last a few months, then your thinking is calibrated towards a few months. That's really what you put your focus on. You know, that's really where your attention goes. If, however, you look and say this is a matter of a few years, you start to think a little bit different. You know, you start to think a little bit more about long-term survival, long-term thriving, long-term prosperity. And that longer-term thinking, it channels a different flow of behavior. And that's really important because it's what you do every day. It's what you repeat consistently, and it's the effort that you put in that ultimately determines your results. So if you think about something is going to be like short-term and you don't do something consistently, the reality is that your results are going to absolutely reflect that. If you can shift the paradigm and if you can shift your perspective to say, I understand that the situation we find ourselves in probably will exist for at least the medium to long term, then of course your behavior, your strategy, your tactics, your energy, your efforts are going to be lined up like that. That was a massive mindset shift. And I think it's probably propelled everything, because it's meant that every decision we're making, we're looking, saying, does this decision make sense in 2 years' time? In 2 years' time, do we think this is going to be a good move? Do we think this is going to help us? Do we think it's going to encourage us to grow? Do we think it's going to create more wealth? So that shift has channeled us to be asking better, very simple, very, very, very good questions that are conducive to building. Those are the 4 tactics, guys. Straight away, nice and simple, focused, dedicated, committed. That's what we did, and that's how we nailed it. You know, we reduced those non-essential short-term expenses, massively got those down. We found some very, very creative ways to reduce those non-long-term, those more essential, probably not everyday expenses. We found some really smart ways to absolutely manage those superbly. We managed to really successfully make better use of our time, and took to heart the concept of devil making work for idle hands, decided to remove the idleness and to channel energy into more productive activities that were more about service to society, that were more conducive to longer term health, well-being, absolutely were conducive towards improving technical skill and personal mastery. And then just lastly, we shifted the mindset completely. We got out of this zone of thinking everything was going to be short term. We started looking a lot more medium and long term, and started asking the questions, if I make this decision now, do I think it's going to make sense? It's going to help me. It's going to support my growth in 2 years' time. The combination of all those things done over time, because time is so important, and done with a huge amount of effort and commitment, helped us do really well during the COVID time. We've experienced a lot of growth personally as well as financially. and it's what we're going to be relying upon now during this whole cost of living crisis, and we're going to be going again to try to grow during this time. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, we don't know where the path is going to take us, but that's the aim, and we're feeling good. All right guys, any comments? That's it. So any comments, questions, observations, if you want to share any of your own stories, please do so. Drop them in the comments, and I'll speak to you next week. Take care guys, love you, bye.